an ocean commotion. The water's rising, no one knew exactly what to do.
After the floodwaters had gone down, Noah and his family left the ark. They built an altar and they thanked God. God made a promise to Noah and his family. Does anyone know what that promise was? God promised to never again flood the whole earth with water. Has God kept that promise? Yes, he has. The whole earth has never again been covered in water, nor will it ever be. It is called a global flood when the whole earth is covered, but local floods still happen. When there's lots of heavy rains or lots of snow melts, local flooding happens if the ground is too saturated to absorb any more water. A street might go underwater because of flooding, or maybe even a whole city. In 1937, the Ohio River flooded, and the entire downtown area of Louisville, Kentucky was so flooded that you had to travel by boat. Several states were affected by this flood because it was such a big flood. Did the flood of 1937 mean that God broke his promise to Noah? No. The flood of 1937 was a local flood. Even though the flood reached several states, it was still a local flood. It didn't affect the whole earth. God has kept his promise. When he made the promise to Noah, he used something as a reminder. Does anybody know what he used? God put a rainbow in the sky as a reminder of his promise to never again flood the whole earth. Normally, we see rainbows when the sun is shining after the rain. Sometimes we see a rainbow in the spray from a water hose on a sunny day. That is because rainbows are formed from light and water. Sunlight is actually made up of colors, but they blend together, so we only see white light. When a beam of light hits the raindrop at a certain angle, however, the different colors in that beam of light separate. That creates a rainbow. The light exits the raindrop as separate colors, so each rainbow is made up of beams of light shining through millions of raindrops. When we see a beautiful rainbow during or after the rain, what are we reminded of? Every time that we see a rainbow, we are reminded of God's promise to never flood the whole earth again. And we know that God's promises are true because his word tells us that God never lies or breaks a promise. So every time that we see a rainbow, we can give thanks that God has kept his promises and will never flood the earth again. Today, you are going to create your own rainbow with Skittles. This science experiment covers a fundamental part of chemistry. Chemicals move from higher concentrations to lower concentrations. This is called a concentration gradient and can be found in everything from perfume vapors wafting through a room to cordial spreading out in water. When you first add the Skittle, they start to dissolve in the water, sending the food coloring outward. The reason that the food coloring meets in the middle of the plate as a cross and doesn't mix is because the food coloring has the same amount of sugar dissolved from each of the Skittle. Once you add the pure sugar into the center of the food color cross, the sugar cube begins to dissolve as well. This creates a situation where the most amount of sugar is found in the center of the plate, where the least amount of sugar is found at the edge of the plate. This area is basically pure water. As the sugar dissolves, it pushes outward into the rest of the solution, and this sends the colored water outward as well. And now for our rainbow experiment. In your kit, you will have Skittles. What you will need to provide is a plate, some water, and some sugar. First thing we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of water to our plate. You'll want 3 different colored Skittles. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of sugar right to where they all connect. We're going to see what happens.